Hi, and welcome to Boomcast, the official podcast from boombox.io.
I'm Music by Lucas.
And I'm Fabio from Noise.
So Boombox just introduced playlisting and also artist profiles, which is going to be a game changer because it allows you to create a profile for yourself so that people can search and find you, and so you can find other people to collab with on the site. This is actually a completely new feature right now, so you can be one of the first people to fill out your artist profile by creating your free account at boombox.io.
It's so nice that there's finally a home for artists to be able to host their profiles. Artists, musicians, engineers, producers, something really dedicated to the industry, because for so long we're playing amongst all these different platforms, trying to combine them into one. And it seems that every time you meet someone, they're on something different to you. So what we're trying to create here is just a home and a meeting point and a community where everyone can grow, share, synergize, store. And the new feature, the best feature, in our opinion, is the artist profiles, because finally people are going to be able to connect as well.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is like other platforms, and we were talking about social media today, so it kind of goes with this for sure, but other platforms are not necessarily made for collaboration. Like Instagram, you're DMing someone, but since Instagram is not a platform that's made for collabing necessarily, it's more like for connecting with friends and posting and stuff like that. It's like people don't necessarily answer their DMs, but if you're on a platform that like literally is made for collabing and you're getting a message about a collab, like it makes sense.
And it feels like also more and more of the world is wanting to work remotely, or it feels that way. I'm not necessarily sure if that's the truth. I don't have like the data in front of me. I know that you and I, Lucas,
where's the data?
And Laura, where is the data? Call the scientists. But it's clear that like you and I like to work remotely, and as a result of working remotely, it's not always really easy to connect with people regularly in communities, like in cities, because we are transient, we are moving around a lot, and we are always trying to find ways to connect with people online. Right. But Instagram can just be such a hassle, because on Instagram, it's not just people who are into music that are going to turn up. Right. It's a whole range of distractions.
So how do you think social media ruined the music industry? I think that it ruined it in a way where it didn't necessarily ruin it for music artists, but I think it ruined it in a way that we can't go back. Like you can't go back to the era before social media. And like, what was that era? Like what are the biggest differences, do you think, now between a music artist trying to grow or to, become successful in the pre-social media era versus now?
I'm going to be pretty harsh here, and I'm just going to come out and say that post-TikTok era, we're not really finding any like gems in the music industry. It's not like it was before. I think artists are so focused or being pressured so much to focus on content creation that they are being taken away from their art. Like, where's our next Adele? Where's our next Amy Winehouse, Mac Miller, Ariana Grande, Kendrick Lamar? We're just not really seeing that kind of level of artistry surface. And it's because we are spread so thin these days as artists. We really have to do everything. And people say, don't be jack of all trades, but you have to be in the creative industry. It's just, it's impossible not to.
This is an interesting take, because there are still some people who what's the name of the guy that we just watched his documentary? Oh, Louis Capaldi. So there are still some people like Louis Capaldi, for example, who are, in my opinion, like a gem. And I think there's many others who have come up in that social media era. Like, for example, he rose on TikTok and got like a huge audience there with his music. His voice is just absolutely insane. And he's got billions and billions of streams. And he started there on TikTok, and he doesn't take his social media. So there's basically like, he doesn't necessarily take his social media in that serious way of like, needing to necessarily like provide value and, hack the algorithm and all those kind of things. Like he just uploads videos for fun. Usually they're silly, or they're videos of him like kind of behind the scenes or just hanging out and showcasing his talents, but in like a silly way. So I do think there are still, I don't know, I feel like there are still some gems, but I agree with what you're saying. Maybe since TikTok is kind of like newer, maybe we have to give it some time to see if there will be some more gems that do pop up. Because obviously all the people that you're mentioning they've been around for a while, but also spreading too thin. I think you're right.
Yeah. I think like the last gem that really came through, again, pre-TikTok, is Billie Eilish. And yet, sure, like artists are using their social media as a better way to connect with their audience, but that's only if it's authentic to them. Like Lewis Capaldi is a dirty, dirty, dirty boy, and so he makes dirty, dirty, dirty jokes, which is fantastic because it's entirely paradoxical to his music, which is this beautiful, deeply emotional music. And that's not to put Lewis Capaldi down and be like, look, Lewis Capaldi's not a gem. I just don't know that like we're seeing as many of those rise through. At the end of the day, like we were well, not even at the end of the day. 10 years ago, we were all complaining about the fact that you had to be the songwriter, the producer, the manager, the mixing engineer, the mastering engineer.
Right.
And that plate isn't getting any bigger, but there's more food being added to it all the time.
Yeah. That's 100% true. I agree with you that things are really getting spread thin. I am interested though to like counter argument, like think about if it's easier to be successful as a music artist in the post social media like TikTok, Instagram era. I would venture to say that it is easier to be like a full-time music artist just because there's more revenue avenues, and also because I feel like, I mean, you could say, and we could talk about this, the algorithm kind of being the new gatekeeper, but I feel like basically that it's not like it used to be where, for example, you had to get signed by a certain record label, or you had to kind of like, DJ as like a house DJ for many, many years, and you had to move to LA, or you had to, now you're seeing people kind of be able to start careers in music from anywhere, but it's different, right?
Yeah, 100%. People are focusing their grind towards different directions, right? Back in the day, if you wanted to go big DJ, you'd have to go play all the small clubs, and you'd have to do that quite consistently. Now you can be an entrepreneur of your space, and you can really own that. So something I see a lot of DJs do is either they're sort of reviewing music, or they're just like hosting these really cool concept parties in their apartment, or they're filming themselves play like at every single show, and then they're uploading that as a way of getting exposure a lot quicker. I hate the term saturated market because I don't think that actually exists. If a market isn't saturated, it probably isn't worth investing any time in. But I think you're right. I think the grind is redirected, and it's an open market, right? There's the chance of a much more exposure, and there's a chance of owning that and being accountable to how successful you are, because the gratification, the audience gratification and response arrives much quicker, right? Even though it is a schlep and it does take a long time to build a profile on social media, as we both know, it doesn't mean that you can't see results fairly quickly, especially if the content is really good.
Right. But that also leads to a point about mental health, because now the results are so... it's like so numbers driven, when I guess before, like if we're going back to like what you were saying before all of this, when you would just kind of like, lock yourself up and produce a track and not really be focused on the social media day-to-day grind, you didn't necessarily, you had to kind of wait until the album came out or until your songs were released to see the numbers. But now you're seeing numbers every day. And I think it is easier now. Maybe one of the cons is that it is easier now to get inside your head and to overthink things and to be this like, because I see artists over and over who almost just like either quit social media or they go back and forth between quitting or taking a break. Like it can be very taxing on the mind for sure.
I think there's like in music, like in every creative industry, there's a lack of hierarchy, there's a lack of structure. So unfortunately, people don't know what too little or too much is, and it's kind of like a listen to your body situation, trying to create something sustainable. It doesn't really exist, right? Because everyone is so unique in how busy they are, how much time they dedicate towards their art, what percentage of that art is then dedicated to social media. And then we're left with this conundrum where it's like, the mental health aspect, I think it plays into all of our lives. And I can't speak for you, Lucas, but I could definitely speak for myself. And I know some people will look at me and be like, man, he's killing it. He's made it. He must be having the best time. I'm having the best time, but I'm probably working harder now than I ever have been almost my entire life, apart from maybe the first year of Noise, running the YouTube channel. And so I think there's also this idea that because someone is successful on social media, that therefore the ride is getting easier. You're also having to now reinvent a new part of your creative pie, right? If 75% of that creative pie is dedicated towards production, songwriting, and then you're giving 25% to social media, it's never like that perfect split, right? But you can't add 25% onto 100% because otherwise you're just going to run yourself into the ground.
Yeah. It's interesting because, so if I look at my journey, I tried to make it in music multiple times before social media. And it wasn't really until after social media that I was able to break through, like with the YouTube channel and everything like that. Like, obviously, I was a lot younger. I was doing like hip hop at the time and stuff like that. And I did have some wins, if you want to say. I had, like, for example, like a song where I got sponsored by Levi's jeans. I had, for example, like a MySpace. Well, that got social media, but it's funny. It almost feels like it was before that. But I had like a MySpace page that was really like high and trending on MySpace Music. But I feel like it wasn't until I was able to cultivate that audience on YouTube that I was able to get where I am now. And also, I think it transformed me in a big way because I am a lot more focused on the music business side now. Like, I realize after all the years that that's what I really love. Like, I still obviously love creating music, but I don't know if I would have known that I love the music business side so much. Obviously, like, I'm starting my own label now and stuff, unless that social media part happened with like building the community and stuff. I don't know what it was like for you.
I'm not saying this is why you're doing it, but I'm speaking for myself here. But I think also as you get older and you work in music, you don't want to be a struggling musician for the rest of your life. You don't want to be, like barely making rent. And so, it's kind of like there is a moment in life where it's a little make it or break it, right? And you're like, okay, what do I have to sacrifice from my artistry in order to be able to have a sustainable career in music and still do the things that I enjoy? And what path am I starting to gravitate towards? I think you're more focused on music business. I obviously like run a business too. And yes, does that mean I have to dedicate time to that? But it still enables me to be a part of it enables us to be a part of the machine that we know and love and have worked in for so many years. I was discovered on MySpace. So to shit on anyone for being discovered on social media would be absolute hypocrisy. I was discovered on MySpace. I got written about by a massive blog when blogs were the thing. Pre-Instagram.
Shout out to MySpace.
Yeah, shout out to MySpace, pre-Instagram. And then I got invited by Virgin Records to go have a chat with them. They gave me some CDs. I was in my school uniform. This is how young I was. Okay, I was in my tie and like my V-neck jumper, like because in the UK we wear school uniform, right? Everyone does. By the way,
it's like the Nativity movie.
What's that? I haven't seen that. I don't know what other. It's like Hogwarts, man. It's like Hogwarts. It's the same thing. It's like wands and capes and shit. And I think okay. So, but then there wasn't much more emphasis on presenting oneself, other than if every so often posting something on MySpace and seeing if it gained any traction. There wasn't a lot of focus on that, but it definitely was a part of the game. When I was 18, I was signed to Warner. Things changed slightly there. My marketing manager, who was clearly like way ahead of the game at the time, she gave me this flip thing. It was just called Flip, I think, and it was a handheld camera, no bigger than, I don't know, like kind of like a big packet of chewing gum, but thicker. A terrible quality camera, by the way, but it was a way to just be able to walk around and like film things. And she was like, "Oh, one of my artists is walking around and filming everything, and then he's posting it on YouTube or something." So I started doing that. So I went to LA a bunch of times and I'd film and I'd make these vlogs. And I didn't really understand the concept of what I was doing at the time. Like vlogging was not yet a thing. It was more like a documentation of my journeys. And I guess it was just more, it was having more visual assets to go alongside the music. I guess like music, I don't know if you agree with me here, but I feel like music only really came into play with Instagram. I mean, I would say like just before TikTok, right? Like that YouTube was still the home of promotion.
Yeah, YouTube is definitely where at least I started growing my community. So I agree with you on that. And when I was on MySpace, I was mainly selling beats. So I think I had a little bit of a different, process than you, but yeah, it is interesting. Like, one thing I wanted to ask you is, did you feel like you had to put on a persona on social media, or do you feel like you were kind of able to be yourself?
At which point? When I started a YouTube channel?
Yeah, like when you maybe when you started, like even just from recording, like you had your flip, you know what I mean? Like, were you kind of like, it's so funny because now you have so many examples of like how to be, like they have so many channels where it's like how to be, better on camera, how to, create a video and have a hook and have a call to action and all these kind of things. And I do posts like this, for example, but this was before that. So like, did you, with your flip, like going around, how did you know how to act, or did you not? Was it random? Did you have kind of like a personality?
There was far less importance around like the persona in front of the camera, unless you were a TV personality. So honestly, I would say 99% of my time was just being 20-year-old me, i.e. just being a massive twat and either playing pranks on my friends. Can you say twat? Is that rude? We just bleep me out.
I liked it. You can get away with it.
Yeah. This is it's music industry.
Lauren, bleep him out.
Being a massive douchebag. All right. I was being a massive douchebag because that's just who I was when I was 20. I don't really care. I was having fun. I was making music. I was filming me and my friends having a good time. Exactly. Not much has changed. Consistency is key, everybody. Do not forget. But I will say, when I started my YouTube channel, I recognized that there was a space to fill, as in all the YouTube channel. Well, okay, I don't want to say all. I think that's very unfair. Let me retract here. A lot of the YouTube channels based around audio engineering felt a little antiquated and a little stiff, and I wanted to bring a bit more personality, because ultimately I was like, this is about having fun, so let's make it fun. Because if it's all like, this is me in the studio doing my thing once again, it doesn't really go hand in hand. It didn't feel like it was going hand in hand with where the world was going, which is towards a healthier body, a healthier mind, and things that I think we all feel sort of indoctrinated by due to sort of contemporary culture capitalizing and marketing it to us.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And that's one thing that I've heard a lot of people say nowadays, is that you have to, they've been saying this forever, but they're saying it specifically with social media, like you have to fake it till you make it. Like you have to pretend to be, and my whole thing is like, okay, so I feel like, and you can tell me what you think, but I feel like the culture has changed in a good way with social media. So I think authenticity and like being yourself has been becoming more and more of a thing, and being more open, because we all remember the old school like music artists and album covers. It was all about kind of like looking cool, like you're Zoolander or like a model, and like every photo, like honestly, before this is how I feel, is like before Reels and before TikToks, Instagram was literally just a bunch of people that were just posing for the most part with photos and then posting their album covers. And the thing is, I hear a lot of people say that now it's worse than it was before. But I think that what they're really saying potentially, and I could be wrong about this, but I think in a way they're just saying that it's harder. Because now they have to they have to think about more than just the music and posing in a picture. They have to find a way that they can be their authentic self. And then they have to ask that question, what is my authentic self? How can I be on camera? Because a lot of people can't be authentic, like don't know how to be authentic on camera. I sure didn't when I was starting out. So I feel like that's one of the biggest changes is trying to figure out who you are and how to represent that on camera, and not just necessarily copy whatever the latest trend is.
So I guess it's playing to your strengths or weaknesses. I think there are artists who do really well on camera, and there are some who don't. And you're like, just post the cool picture, man. Like this is fucking cringe. Like, yeah. I think I also appreciate the artists who do purely share their artistry, and because they're introverted, they don't feel the need to speak to camera. They just show what they're doing. And so, and that kind of speaks for it, and that speaks for itself. And I think that is just as powerful if that is authentic to you, right? If you need to feel introverted on camera, do something introverted. Don't talk to camera. If you feel extroverted and you're a massive douchebag like me, talk to camera and, get it out there. I mean, I spend so much time alone. I feel like the camera has now become a friend because that's what I talk to most of the day. And it's this. We believe that we have to do one thing, right? But we can actually make a choice. And I think we get cornered and pressured into doing different things. There are, of course, artists out there who are having a lot of success without social media. Is there a way to really, really focus on a slightly more classic route to being successful? Is that riskier? 100%. 100% is. I met this when I was coming to NAMM to meet you. I met this girl on the plane, awesome singer-songwriter, and I asked her. I was like, we got in a conversation. I was like, do you do content like for your projects? And she was like, honestly, like I just find it kind of cringe and and I'm like, do you not think it would help you get more exposure? Like, you're obviously very talented. She's got some great records. I'll put her stuff down in the link below. Okay. And it was really, really interesting to hear her take. She said, I think it's kind of cringe. I don't really want to monetize my singing. And what I do, I'd rather just go like more of a classic route. And I really respect that. Lo behold, right? Last week, I see she's doing some more vlogging style kind of stuff, content on Instagram, and I feel like she's succumbed to the social media content creation pressure that I guess we all feel and face today.
Well, there's a case to be made maybe that people just don't like what they don't feel comfortable doing. For example, like I've heard a lot of people tell me they don't like social media because you just have to do tutorials, or you just have to flip samples, or you have to do this stuff. And I've also heard people say, for example, that TikTok is poison, and that the only thing that that does well is like dirty stuff or like scantily clad people or whatever. And my whole thing is like, it's interesting because, like, for example, with TikTok, when I look at my feed, I don't see any of that because the algorithm just shows you what you interact with. So, for example, like this is just like TikTok's like, my feed is sometimes kind of like just the hobbies that I'm interested in. Like, there's some stuff about science. Like, I'll get Neil deGrasse Tyson videos. I'll get historical, videos from people like talking about the history of this or that. I'll get some like music stuff where some like news updates. And so it's pitching me more and more of that stuff, and I get a lot of course, cap cuts and stuff like that, because I like to save those and come up with ideas to post and to use for my own socials. But it's just interesting because I feel like, it's not necessarily that social media is the way they see it. It's just that they want to, demonize it or make it seem less cool because they don't necessarily, it's not their thing, and that's fine. Like, it's not my thing to do certain things, and maybe I don't think they're as cool because I don't spend my time doing them, but it doesn't mean that they're necessarily, not worth anyone's time.
I agree. And I do urge people also, if social media isn't your thing, don't worry about it. Like, but use that. Right. Don't take 25% of that pie of your creative energy and just put it towards something random. Really hone in on the artistry, because I personally, I'm still waiting for the next Mac Miller, the next Ariana Grande, the next Beyonce, the next Kanye West. Do you know what I mean? I'm still waiting for that artist to come through, and I just haven't seen it. I haven't felt it. Right? I think like I spoke about Billie Eilish. So if you're out there and you are watching this, get back in the studio, put Instagram down. Don't worry about filming your face. Like, maybe you will break through in a different way, and there's nothing wrong with being different. Of course, it needs to be a calculated risk. How willing are you to take that risk to be different? Is up to you. And I think that can be very stressful for some people. So I wonder if at a certain point some people go, fuck it, I'm just going to start a great Instagram account or a great TikTok account. And good for those people too, good. Like, there's no wrong, there's no right here. I thought that maybe I wanted to lean into a little bit of data that I found that I thought you might find interesting.
Let's hear it.
So 430 songs.
Put on your glasses, your nerd glasses.
Okay, yeah, hold on.
When you talk about data, please.
Can we get like a doo-doo, 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 doo-doo. Okay.
This will kind of be our out of the box section maybe today is the data.
430 songs surpassed 1 billion video views as TikTok sounds in 2021, and over 175 songs that trended on TikTok in 2021 charted on the Billboard Hot 100, twice as many as the year before. So clearly the proof is in the pudding, right? You cannot ignore the data.
Yeah. It really, and that's why I say social media has ruined the music industry, because it hasn't. I mean, people could say it ruined it for artists, but again, I would say that it just ruined the way that it was. Like it's not going back. You know.
Absolutely. TikTok signed
for better or worse.
For sure. TikTok signed licensing deals with 3 major record groups several years ago, right? So Sony in 2020, Warner Music Group in January 2021, and Universal Music Group in February 2021. So the major record labels are also seeing and investing in the importance of TikTok. Now, from the other perspective, artists have come out and said, like, Halsey, is that how you pronounce it? Halsey, and Charlie XCX have posted videos expressing frustration at being asked to make TikToks by their labels. Like, I get it. I mean, especially if you're like a successful artist. Imagine your label being like, can you make some TikToks? It's like, screw you, hire someone to come and make the TikToks for me. I'm busy. I'm on tour. I'm out here playing shows. I'm in the studio. I'm also trying to live my life. Come on. They've made it, you know, they're doing the big time. It's not easy. And they was like, we need you to do extra promotion because we have no idea how to do it. Right.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting argument, because it's not necessarily everyone's forte to want to do that. And then you see some people, like, for example, Megan Trainor has like really good in TikTok, and I like to watch hers because it shows a little behind the scenes of the life and stuff like that. But some people, they don't want to show the behind the scenes of their life, and they don't want to, you know, have to do that kind of stuff. It's interesting though, because also one thing that I wanted to note is that I think that famous people, like really famous music artists like Charlie XCX and these kind of people, are not necessarily good people to use as reference for smaller artists trying to make content. Because one thing to note is that when you're really, really big, you know, you have a higher success rate that your TikToks and your stuffs are going to do better because you already have like a really loyal fan base. Whereas if you're a starting out artist, you know, it's more difficult to be able to just, you know, I guess, post without a plan, you know, and some of the bigger artists do have a plan behind their posts, obviously. But I think it's almost better to look at, if you're looking for someone for reference as to like who's a good person to see who's doing posts and content that's working. I think it's more like breakout people, like people that are on the rise, who have been building on socials and who are seeing a lot of growth, that are probably the best references.
Yeah, absolutely. My concern is like, my concern with that sometimes, and this is only sometimes, and I think this is the case for all artists, whether on TikTok or not, but I wonder if there's a change in the decay rate of popularity of those records as a result of being a TikTok trend. Like how long is the lifespan?
How fast?
Right? Of a record, or how quickly does that popularity decay if it's a hit on TikTok, right, as opposed to like a hit anywhere else,
a hit on the radio,
right, or in the club, or whatever it might be? Or is it just that if it's a hit on TikTok, it will then be passed on to those other platforms, you know, rather than the other way around?
Yeah. Most people say, and I think it's true as well, that usually the hit happens on TikTok first, and then it kind of fizzles out onto Instagram and other platforms. Obviously, there's also audio that trends first on Instagram, if it's a, you know, but I think a lot of the stuff, it's like, ooh, I heard that on TikTok, and then it becomes like a thing on Instagram. Okay,
so what do you think about...
But yeah, I think for the... Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I think there's a bit of latency. Lucas, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think you have a point, though, because like songs on the radio, it'd be pretty much like after a few months, you would be like, ugh, this song, it's always on, it's driving me crazy. But when it's on social media, how long does it trend before it drives you crazy, for example?
What do you think about artists making music for TikTok now? And they're sort of like gearing and aiming and targeting their lyrics to be able to be like transformed into actions or dance moves. Do you think that is potentially playing a role in the quality and the what's the word I'm looking for here? It means like deep, when it's like really deep, the visceral quality of music.
I don't know. I feel like it's always kind of been like that to a certain extent. I feel like it's just different rules, different game, but like the game has changed, but the rules are the same. Like people are always gearing music for whatever the trend was, depending, whatever the era is. I mean, we've all kind of seen that where there's kind of like, the effect where it hits peak trend, and then as it starts to kind of go down, you have kind of like off-brand remakes of all these different types of tracks that were popular before. People trying to just kind of hack the code that worked in the past. And I think that there are those artists who maybe they follow the rules of making things that are catchy and making things that are like they maybe there's some things that they use in the recipe that have been done before, but that they like fight to break the mold and be that trendsetter. And I do think that there's still something to be said about that. I don't know. I also feel like my consensus is that I really think that social media has made it possible for the artists who want to be more and more creative to also have to have an easier barrier to entry. Now, there's still going to be artists, of course, that are very talented who have a harder time making it, and not everybody is going to be a pro at social media or find their stride right away. And there's going to be things like, but I'm seeing people like, for example, that are booking sold out tours across, let's say the US, because of their they DJ on and they do mashups on Instagram or whatever, and then all of a sudden they're booking shows in Vegas, and they're not having to go through these old ways of having to like hope that they get the label or hope they get the manager or whatever. They sometimes people see these names lit up in lights outside these stadiums and they're like, who is that? And someone's like, it's a TikTok star, and they're like kind of laughing about it like, oh, and it's like, well, who cares? They're the ones that are have this brand and this kind of thing. But I also, it also depends on your personality too, because me as an artist, I would just feel better if I wasn't just making, little tidbit tracks that were made to hack the TikTok algorithm all the time. Like I would want to be more creative musically than that. But I don't know. I think there's always been people on both sides.
I guess posting on TikTok as an artist is really no different to knocking on a record label's door with your demo CD on a weekly basis, right? I think it's another version of that. It's like a digital version of what we used to do physically.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to be reminded about that, just like this podcast that we're on right now is a recycled version of radio. That's all it is, right? It's just that we have the control. We have the station. We are the presenters. And so I know I've been shitting on social media and TikTok for pretty much this whole episode, but I do want to end on a lighter, a more positive note, which I do think is like, we're a part of a generation, you and I, Lucas, where, oh, by the way, if anyone's wondering how old we are, if I can I disclose your age?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I'm 31 and
Do you
Lucas
know my age?
33, right? No, you're 34. It was your birthday recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, 34. Yeah. Right. And
I'm the old man. I'm supposed to be the grumpy one on the podcast. You're supposed to be the one who's optimistic.
I think we've lived through. God, that sounds so dramatic. We've lived through these massive changes, but we kind of have. We've seen the digital age transform, and it's easy to get upset about it sometimes. And I'm not really upset about it because ultimately I use social media to my advantage. I play that game, I work that machine, and that machine then favors me and gives me the life that I want to live and the life that you want to live and many other people out there. And so I just wanted to kind of finish on a positive note. And if you are from our generation or maybe an older generation and you find it very frustrating, just remember that it's just a reinvention of something that already existed, and we're just playing the game in a different way. It's still we're still playing soccer, but it's not on grass, it's on AstroTurf, right? It's the same game, just with a slightly different skill set. It's that simple. So I do also want to say that one thing I love from TikTok is I love seeing my favorite artists play shows. Mm-hmm. I think having that FOMO where you're seeing the crowd like bop up and down and everyone's just having a really good time.
Yeah.
And you know how that feels in your bones, and it inspires you to want to go out or to make music or to be an artist. I think that in itself is still very powerful. And sometimes we need those little boosts of inspiration throughout the day. So I guess without going into lots of detail, be to everyone, I would say, including myself, and I'm preaching to myself here, is like, be very careful of how you use social media, and if you can use it to your advantage, you'll always come out on top.
Yeah, because and the last thing I want to say is, if you look back at the day, people loved making of the band, behind the music, all these kind of like documentary things. And now with social media, you're just getting those documentary things fed to your phone, but in like more of like a bite-sized, smaller way. And maybe people don't like that, or they do like that. Like you're saying, the game has changed, but it's still like the same. It's still the same. It's just in a different package and a little bit of a quicker, But we're here, and we're going to be doing more, talk on this. And if you guys have comments, I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this and which side you're on. If it frustrates you, if it doesn't, if you're optimistic, if you're not optimistic, and how you think the future is going to be. If it's going to get even more short form, are we going to have like 1 second video clips all the time, or are we going to go longer form? And what you prefer. So, yeah.
Big thanks to my fantastic co-host Lucas for engaging with me in this topic today. And of course, we want to say thank you to Boombox.io for being able to make all this content happen.
Yes, and also, if you haven't already, go get your free account on Boombox.io and make your artist profile. That's the new feature. And soon, those artist profiles are going to go live, and you'll be able to find other artists to collaborate with, and it's going to make the whole collaboration process so much easier. Make sure to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and you can find me on all platforms at Music by Lucas.
And you can find me at noise_London and Boombox at boombox.io.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Peace.